let's call to order the June 17th meeting of the West Sacramento City Council, Redevelopment, Successor Agency, and Financing Authority. We are meeting tonight pursuant to Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 as part of the declaration of emergency, and pursuant to which members of the council and staff are participating in this meeting by teleconference to reduce the spread of COVID-19. We've asked members of the public to watch and participate in the meeting through the city's live stream available on the website or via Wave Cable Channel 20, and to submit comments in writing by 6 o'clock on the day of the meeting to the city clerk's email address that's noted on the website. All of the comments that are received by the city clerk are available both to members of the council. They are provided in their entirety to members of the council. We each have them. They are also available to all members of the public on the city's website, adjacent to this live video feed and to the council's agenda, so that every member of the public has searchable access to all comments that have been made as part of this meeting. So with that, the council did meet in closed session this evening to confer with the items that are noted on our agenda with our legal counsel and others. We have no reportable actions from the closed session. So we'll proceed to item 1A, which is presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the city council. And we did receive one public comment. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
It is correct. We have one comment, item 1A.
All right, and that comment is in writing, and that letter is available on the city's website. And all members of the council have it in their possession right now. Okay, that brings us then to item 1B, which is council communications. Are there reports or other communications from our liaison assignments at this point? Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Finally was able to unmute, sorry. The River City Regional Stadium Financing Authority met on June 8th, and we received the treasurer's report for calendar year 2019 and approved the budget for municipal administration expenses for fiscal year 2020, 2021. Those are the expenses that the city bears. We also heard a COVID-19 update on ballpark operations, revenues, and debt obligations. Sacramento River Cats Baseball Club and River City Stadium Management are creatively pursuing options for revenue and are evaluating options such as debt refinancing. And we will be reconvening the authority later this year to revisit the issues, which you can imagine are plenty in this matter. The Yolo Solano AQMD met on June 10th. We approved the district's 2020-2021 budget. We heard impacts of COVID-19 on operations of the district, which included some delayed work on source testing, startup inspections, and permit fee payments. The AQMD staff will be keeping the board updated of any significant impacts to operations. And we also, due to COVID-19, extended the Clean Air Fund application deadline to late September. Valley Clean Energy met on June 11th. The Alliance received reports from the Community Advisory Committee and about pending legislation and approved a set of contract extensions for legal counsel and lobbyists. The Alliance also approved a purchase power agreement for procurement of energy from a new 72 megawatt solar photovoltaic project in San Diego County. Policy strategies for long-term renewable contracts and the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget were also approved. A net energy metering donation pilot program was also approved. I have to share with my colleagues, the outlook is quite dire for the organization financially, and the organization is looking into alternatives such as raising rates or taking out loans to keep it afloat. And personally, it doesn't seem like the best timing for our city to consider joining as a full member. Mayor may have something to add. I have a couple more reports, Mayor, and have other things to share about Valley Clean Energy. Feel free to add on. Yolo County Housing met earlier today. The board adopted the 2020-2021 annual operating budget and heard a report on the status of a land donation for an Esparto property from New Seasons Community Development Corporation. We also heard that, good for us, West Sac Permanent Supportive Housing Project is officially under construction. And then finally, RD 900 also met earlier today, and we adopted the assessment rate for 2020, 2021, and the 2020-2021 budget.
Yeah, let me just, on two of those items, I wanted to just supplement the excellent report that the Mayor Pro Tem has given. First on the ballpark authority, should give all the information, but just to put a underscore it because it is an important issue for the council to be aware of. I think we talked about this briefly for a minute or two a couple of months ago, but with no season at the River Cats, and it does not appear that that's likely to change. In part because Major League Baseball still hasn't figured out what it's doing with its own season, much less to be able to determine as a corollary of that what will occur with the River Cats. So it's not, we don't know for sure, but doesn't look good in terms of a season. But even with the season, the revenues associated with the playing ball and other events at Sutter Health Park won't be anywhere what they normally are. And unlike the Kings or the A's or the Giants, the River Cats depend on their ticket sales and their and ancillary things like food and beverages and merchandise, rather than lucrative ESPN contracts for their revenues. And the same is true for the stadium. And the stadium depends on those same revenues in order to make the bond payments that financed the construction of Rayleigh Field and now Sutter Health Park in the first place. And so the board of the authority is along with the River Cats organization are very much focused on how to assure that there are no to minimize the negative financial impacts on the bonds, on our bond rating, and on the potential that that both the city of West Sacramento and Sacramento County, which are the two backstops on the bonds, that either of us would be called upon in order to make additional payments. And so that's the situation that we're all doing our best to try to avoid. And there are options, and our staff and others are working on them. But it is important for the council just to be aware that is out there, because that could be it's not millions of dollars, and we have certainly been planning prudently over these years in order to have the necessary reserves and other funds in order to take effective action in that case. But it's also not trivial. So I think we both wanted to make sure that the council was fully aware that work is ongoing. And then on Valley Clean Energy, I want to completely concur. So we joined as an associate member, really partly for the purpose of determining whether it would make sense for us to possibly join as a regular member for Valley Clean Energy's aggregation services for the residents and businesses that sign up with them for their power. But also because, as the council will recall, Valley Clean Energy was engaging in efforts to try to secure some of PG&E's assets and territory as well. And those efforts, some representatives teams reported on sort of the attractiveness of joining Valley Clean Energy itself right now isn't really there, given the situation that it is in. And the likelihood of success on the PG&E side in terms of making progress towards municipalization or some other outcome from the bankruptcy case and other options also just isn't there at this stage. And and we're devoting time and energy to it. And so is Valley Clean Energy, and its members are, they invite us to their meetings, they send us the materials, they brief us, and all of that. So I think I agree. It may be the time for us to cease our associate membership. We always return, assuming they agree, at some later date if the situation changes. But right now, given the press of other businesses before us and before them, it seems that it's the time for us to complete the test period that we've been in through this associate membership. And so I don't know, Mr. City Manager, Mr. City Attorney, what documents or action we would need to take in order to affect that. Maybe you can weigh in.
Yeah, sure. We can convene on that. We had, if you remember, Doug Droz did the item to join us as an associate member. We can certainly look at what it would take to, in that relationship as an associate member. It probably would require council action. Jeff may know off the top of his head, but we'll definitely explore that.
I think that's probably right, but we'd have to take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sandine, for those reports. Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 4th, I met with the Regional Water Agency Board. They held a special meeting to review the reopening plans of local jurisdictions as it relates to COVID-19. And all agencies provided reports on what their plans were. And I was joined by William Roberts, our Director of Public Works, and he reported out on on the status of our reopening plan. And on June 15th, the Yolo Groundwater Subbasin Agency Board met, and we had a presentation on ground monitoring activities that have been occurring since last year, and lots of information there. The PowerPoint presentation is on their website. We also received the financial statements for 2019 and 2020, and also approved a modification in the financial audit services due to the Reclamation District 537 joining 827. And that concludes my report.
Right. Thank you. Councilmember Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On June 4th, I met with the Commission on Homelessness and along with other city leaders from throughout the region to discuss an exit strategy for our Project Roomkey project. And for those that are listening in the community, this is the project that involved housing some of our most vulnerable homeless individuals in not only the Roadway Inn, but also other local motels in West Sacramento. I communicated to the commission that we are definitely interested in collaborating regionally in discussing how we plan to do that exit strategy. However, West Sacramento has always been kind of independent with its approach to dealing with our issues related to homelessness and trying to reduce the impacts and incidences. And that's exhibited by some of the other projects that we've engaged in, including Bridge to Housing back in 2014 and other projects that we have underway and existing. So with that, we are looking into other options for how we transition the community of residents. Right now, we've pared it down to several individuals who still remain in the Roadway Inn. Many of them are the most medically vulnerable and or over the age of 65. And I guess one of the hopes to bring back to the council is to decide whether or not this could be an option for us to transition this group into our permanent supportive housing unit once it's filled. And as Mayor Pro Tem Sandine mentioned, it is already underway. And I just wanted to commend the Yolo County Children's Alliance, as well as our homeless coordinator, Mark Sawyer, for their countless hours of hard work and helping to coordinate efforts for the residents and who've benefited from Project Roomkey, as well as our community. As our council knows and many others know, we had several different people come through in service. And this is during a time when everybody is feeling vulnerable. Everybody is feeling exposed and helpless. And yet lots of folks came through, provided food and other resources to the folks that were living there. And it was just a wonderful exhibition of kindness and humanity. So I want to commend the community for doing so. That ends my report.
Yeah. Thank you, Councilmember Roscoe, and thanks to you and I know you and other members of the council, Mayor Pro Tem Sandine and Supervisor Villegas has been cooking a lot, and Councilmember Ledesma. Folks have been really, making food, buying food from local businesses and other services and materials and stuff to not make it just a roof, but the kind of support that helps folks. That this gives folks an moment of opportunity. The crisis creates a moment where they get a chance to reset and to reboot with at least some of the supports that they need. And thanks to the organizations, the institutions, and staff but also to, as you say, the citizens of the community and their leaders who've been really stepping up. So thanks for all your leadership in that work. So important. Councilmember Ledesma, did you have?
I did. I had one item to report out on. Good evening, everyone. So a week ago, Monday, the 8th, we had a meeting of the Yolo County Transportation District, and it was a pretty full agenda. Mainly went through three things I'll highlight. First of all, we went through sort of the beginning talks of a partial service restoration program. So I think that the service is down, as you all know, and it's been rightly so as we've been affected by COVID and people have stay-at-home orders. Service has been really down and purposefully so, but we are starting to look at ways we can begin bringing bus service back. We're going to be strategic about it, and most importantly, look at possible partnerships throughout the region regarding that. Two, we also took up in relationship to that the hearing on the proposed 2021 preliminary budget. And I think I reported on this the last time. We did approve it. There's some questions that came out of Woodland about how the CARES Act money was being distributed, and because a lot of this budget is being propped up by the CARES Act money is being allocated through SACOG, which is great. That's what it's there for, to help keep the district running. But a lot of the feedback from the board are bringing up some really tough questions around the district. And as we talk about reopening and we talk about not knowing what the future brings, we're going to be managing this budget very closely, even talking about every month is having a budget update. And so we can tee up issues and react quickly. But the board is kind of uniformly, I think, unanimous in considering the budget as an open item pretty much the entire year to kind of watch it. So, and this YCTD staff is on board with that. And so we did pass it, but, and it does have a lower allocation as a result to WESAC this year and other jurisdictions. But again, it's the future we're worried about. So we'll keep an eye on that and I'll keep reporting out. Finally, my tenure as chair has ended as YCTD. And we selected our chair and vice chair for 2021. Chair is board member Jessie Lauren from Winters, who's terrific. She's become a terrific partner, has been vice chair. So I'm looking forward to her leadership. And the vice chair for the upcoming year is Don Saylor. So that's all I have. Oh, I should note as well, we did approve a 3-month extension of the the Youth Ride Free program. So that was an extension to kind of get it to a full year, so the youth can continue riding free on YOLO bus. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledesma. And just, first to acknowledge Assembly Member McCarty hosted last Friday a Facebook Live event focused on West Sacramento. He'd been doing a lot on some of the public health issues in Sacramento, and recognizing that this portion of his district is not in Sacramento County. He wanted to really focus here, and so appreciate his attention and his work on our behalf. And it also happened to be where we launched the every graduating high school senior gets an admission letter and a scholarship. It was an extraordinary moment. I know the council's heard from a lot of community members. I know I have about that, about how much that meant, and a lot of young people it meant a lot as well. So thanks to Mr. Darling to launch that and help support it along the way. The Transportation Committee for SACOG met last week, and we took up a couple items that are relevant. So we took up action on the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program nominations. We didn't have any. Is my audio breaking up?
It's breaking up, yeah, a little bit. For me, I'm not sure if everybody else is hearing that.
Yeah, it's breaking up. Yeah.
Let's see if I can switch to a different microphone.
Can you hear this one, by chance? Is it any better?
Yes, it is better.
Okay.
So we took up the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program nominations. It's a large state-funded program for trade corridors. We didn't have any applications in that, so I'm mostly just mentioning it so that we don't miss. We always get an application in there because as a major trade corridor in the region, it's a good source of funding. But some of the more relevant items for us. First, I reported before on the air quality lockdown that the region is in. And that is because the council will recall the fight between the state and the federal government over California's ability to regulate vehicles' air emission standards. As a result of the federal government saying that California could no longer regulate emissions, that meant that all the air quality forecasts went through the roof because we depend so much on clean cars in order to maintain air quality in all of California. As a result, this region and virtually all of urban California no longer complies with the Clean Air Act because none of our transportation plans or any other plans are leading towards meeting the Clean Air Act requirements because we just suddenly lost all the credit for future cars being cleaner than the rest of the country. So there's that big political battle that's happening nationally, but it has an impact here because as a result of not being in conformity, that means we've been in what's called a lockdown for the last year, just about, under which we're not allowed to add any additional capacity projects into the regional transportation mix that weren't already in before. So for example, you can't put a new bridge or a new interchange or a new road. You can add a bike lane, you can add some kinds of transit, but not all of it. But for the most part, you can't put any new projects in. It's not a big deal and for a short period of time because there's so many projects that need to be funded already, but it is a problem in the long run. Completely unexpectedly, a couple of weeks ago, the federal government said, actually, no, we're kidding. You're not in nonconformity, and you're no longer in a lockdown. So the lockdown is lifted, and that's very good news for the region. The underlying issues are still there, of course, but and the fight that California is undertaking that I know I support to make sure we have the ability to continue with the cleaner cars that have characterized our state's leadership on both climate and air pollution and health for decades, that we need to win that. But in terms of this particular case, I want to make sure the council was aware that lockdown is now over. And it has implications for us for projects like the Enterprise Bridge, just as an example. So no action on that, but that was a key step up. Next is work on the regional Parks and Trail strategic development plan is underway. And I'm only highlighting it because we had a bit of a debate about this issue at SACOG. This is the plan about how the region ought to think about and support and program funding for region parks and trails. And it turned into a bit of a debate because our staff was suggesting that we prioritize trails that connect to other trails inside places like ours, but that we focus on real trails, that I think is what they said, real trails, which would be trails of a half a mile or longer inside the city, that in order to connect a trail, say from the Bright neighborhood to the trail on the levee, if we wanted to count that trail on the levee as a priority for the regional trail system, then it needs to connect to people, to disadvantaged neighborhoods in particular, in significant trail segments, like a half mile or longer. And that's an attractive concept, especially for young planners that don't work in cities, right? The idea that we should be incentivizing these more significant trails and not just 2 blocks here and a block there. The challenge is that we're talking about neighborhoods that are already built. So it isn't so easy just to say, hey, Elkhorn Village, we're about to put in a brand new trail of a half a mile or longer, and we're going to exercise. Well, how do? You exercise eminent domain? You take out historic trees? Where do you get the money for it? And most urban trails like that occur a block or 2 at a time, or a small amount at a time. Or they're the things like that we're working on right now with respect to the bicycle trail underneath Highway 50. That's not a half a mile long, but it's absolutely critical for connectivity between disadvantaged neighborhoods and other neighborhoods and regional amenities, jobs, and everything else. And so So we kind of sent them back to the drawing table saying, please, let's look at how this really works on the ground in disadvantaged communities and not just as a sort of an idealized policy frame. So that'll be coming back for further consideration at a future meeting. Then lastly, we took up the issue of green zones. The council will recall when I think Mr. Corliss was with us, he reported, and we have supported a couple of times now, SACOG's initiative called Green Means Go, seeking funding and support from the state to invest in economic competitiveness and other actions that are related to our climate and sustainability goals in the state and those goals that the state shares. So the step that's currently underway is the designation of what those green zones are within the region. And the preliminary maps, they're based on the normal things that you would expect. And I just want to highlight, in particular for Mr. Ledesma, in case I happen to miss a meeting, so this keeps when these come back, is that the staff is trying to focus the green zones on exactly those areas where mixed use housing and jobs and sorts of projects can be built. And that's a laudable focus, but I think as we've talked before, and as we've tried to help the rest of the region understand, is that even on things like on affordable housing, the affordable housing complex alone is not enough. That if there's no park nearby, if there's no dry cleaner nearby, right? If there's no laundromat nearby, it's the whole thing. And you might not think, oh well, a laundromat can't compete for green zone money, but a laundromat might be one of the key factors that makes a neighborhood that's affordable, sustainable, and equitable actually work and function. And so I've been encouraging SACOG staff to think about the green zones as the areas of benefit rather than necessarily the geographic areas where that project sits. So for example, if you were to create a trail across the Yolo Basin from Bright all the way to Davis to connect it to more jobs at the university or what have you, the trail itself is not in Bright. But if the purpose is to connect the residents of Bright to jobs or to other opportunity or to educational opportunities, then that should count too towards the kinds of green zone efforts that we're undertaking. So that's the debate that's happening in that topic. So again, no final action was taken, but we're trying to shape some of these important initiatives that are regional in a way that makes sense from the West Sacramento. Okay, so that's it on reports under item 1B. We're not doing commission appointments at this time. And that brings us then to item 2, which is presentation by the Yolo County Registrar of Voters, providing an update on election 2020 changes. I believe we've been joined by Chief Elections Officer, if I can find him on our list to bring it back on video. There he is. Okay. All right, welcome, Mr. Salinas. Jesse, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for allowing me to join you, and I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for allowing me to come share with you what's happening in election land coming up in November. So again, Jesse Salinas, the Yolo County Assessor, Clerk, Recorder, and Register of Voters, coming to you as the registrar today. And thank you, Mayor Cabaldon and the rest of the council members. It's great to see you all. We haven't seen each other for quite some time, so it's good to see your faces and the good work that you're doing in West Sacramento. What I'd like to do is just give you a quick little recap. This last election in March was quite a challenge. And as you all know, it was on March 3rd and COVID had just started to be announced. And we started to have a little bit of a panic that happened on election morning. We started having a number of our poll workers cancel out on election day. And to give you a little bit of a reference, typically we'll have about a 5% cancellation of our poll workers. And on election morning, we had 10% of our poll workers cancel election morning. And our individuals that are our inspectors that are really our supervisors, the more experienced individuals at those polling places that we put in charge of them. We had, instead of a 2 to 3% cancellation, we had a 15% cancellation. So you could imagine, even though I have a buffer, a significant buffer of people on a waiting list that I can call upon on election day, it became a bit frantic trying to fill the seats, to the point where I was coming up to the assessor staff here and I was saying, I need help. I have 2 polling places that need poll workers. Can I have anybody who's willing to do that? And I had 2 staff saying, I'm there, shut down their computer, and they ran off to be able to help fill those spots because we had gone through all of our backlog of our backups. So, and when I think about that, to give you a context, that was March 3rd. We had just barely learned about COVID. So we've done a survey of checking in to see how many of our poll workers would be interested in coming back, assuming that there is a fall wave that could potentially happen. That could be similar to what we've experienced, just to prepare for that. I keep saying to my staff, we want to hope for the best, but plan for the worst, because you want to be ready for the worst case scenario. So we've been asking our poll workers their interest in wanting to come back to that kind of environment, if in fact it is there. And so far, we're not done with all of our survey results, but essentially about 2/3 have said, I think I'll take a pass. So you can see the dire need of needing to make some adjustments. So giving that as a backdrop, I wanted to just share that piece with you just to see where things are in terms of COVID and the experiences we've had. There was an executive order recently passed by our governor that provided a framework of how we might be able to run our elections for November. There is currently legislation that's mirroring a lot of those same elements that we're anticipating will go through the legislative process. And it's SB 423, the Umberg bill, which has a lot of the same key elements. There's some more details in the legislation, but we do know that there's support for that legislatively. So we're gearing up for that path of what the outline is from the executive order to give us some planning. Because as you know, we start planning now for the elections, and we're starting to order necessary equipment and PPE and everything else that's going to be happening all in the next month or so has to start planning now for that. One of the things I'm reaching out to all of you is, in making these plans, I'm going to give you a highlight of the key changes that are in the executive order, because that's going to impact what's going to happen in November. Number one, what the governor has outlined and the legislation supports right now is that for every 10,000 voters, we are to have some kind of voter assistance or center available. We're looking at calling it a voter assistance center that is similar to what a vote center is across the river in Sacramento County. It'll have a lot of the same elements to it. And it's following the same guidelines of 1 in 10,000. For every 10,000 registered voters, we will have one of those locations. To give you context, what that means is in West Sacramento, you have 29,000 registered voters. So I'm looking at having 3 locations in West Sacramento. I have another item is to have for every 15,000 voters to have a drop box available. I would like to have more than just 1 or 2 drop boxes, or 2 drop boxes if possible in West Sacramento, because there's different options that we could do there. So I'm looking at that in terms of an option, and I'll tell you a little bit more in a few minutes about one of these elements, which is one of the things that the legislation, the executive order and the legislation is saying is having one 24/7 drop box, a physical drop box that is bolted down to the ground on the outside, that is meeting all the requirements from the Secretary of State's office. And they have said, per the county, we'd only have to have 1. Now, I've already identified a location here in Woodland, but I would like to share with you, I would like to see 1 in West Sacramento. I want to make it convenient for your voters to be able to come by and drop off at a ballot box, drive up, literally open up the window and drop in their ballots into that location. So wanting to work with you to find that ideal location for a drop box and make that work. And it's a little bit more costly on my end, but again, as I've shown you, I've really made a strong commitment to provide, quality service to West Sacramento, and that commitment continues. Similarly, the locations, I'm going to want to hopefully have some help in identifying those possible locations. Like outlining with my staff, we're going through what those specs would look like in terms of a physical location, how much square footage we would need, and other kinds of, obviously, ADA requirements and other state requirements to be a proper location for that. These voter assistance centers will be open starting the weekend before. So from that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, opened up 8 hours, 3 days prior, and then a full day on election day. So that's the modeling that's being looked at, because we want people to be able to utilize that, of course, as an option. But fundamentally, the big option that you're seeing also on the table is that we're going to be sending every registered voter a vote by mail option. So everybody will have the opportunity to vote by mail if they so choose. But the voter assistance centers are really going to be for those individuals that have needs where they're not able to, for some reason or another, and actually need to come in to be able to provide that assistance, whether it's from a disability or a language need aspect, or they're having some issues overall with their ballot that they need to be able to have a conversation with somebody and get some assistance on. And some people just like to come in and drop it off in person, which we're hoping in this environment that we can create avenues and structures so that that can be convenient and they don't have to stand in line if they're just there to drop off a vote by mail in person. So there's lots of options that we're working on. So what I'm coming with you today is I'm really looking to establish, and just so you know, I'm touching bases with every city council in the county, and I'm asking them to assist me, because this is a partnership. For us to do this right, it's a partnership with my office so that we can really garner the support of the community. I'd like to have a working group established that the city council, and perhaps identifying a staff person or somebody that you have in mind to work with our office in bringing together the community, and not only helping to identify what are the best locations that are strategically placed throughout the community that meet the needs that we have outlined, but also to help us engage language groups and disabled community members that haven't often been able to engage in this way. This gives us a whole new opportunity. I see this crisis as an opportunity to do something we've never done before at a whole nother level. And I want to embrace that opportunity, because it could be a platform moving forward to just allow us to have the communities involved with our discussions on the election process, and to help us recruit poll workers. I'd love to have assistance in recruiting poll workers, because as I've started out the earlier part of this presentation, we're scrambling to have enough poll workers, and we need people who are willing to provide our support for our voters at these voter assistance centers. And so I'm really hoping to identify a liaison, ideally one from the city council, or if there wants to be more than that, I'm happy with that as well, and a staff person to work with us collaboratively to really do something, that's never been done before, but again, gives us the opportunity to do something special in this environment. So, quick overview. I just wanted to give you all those nuts and bolts, and seeing if you all had any questions for me.
Are there other questions? Or Maria, do you have any corrections you need to make of what Jesse just said?
So I'd like to introduce, Maria down below is, she's my new outreach specialist. Maria, you want to wave? Maria, it's wonderful to have her. Coronel, she's my new outreach specialist. And somewhere on this line is also Catherine Campos, who is my program manager. They will be my staff leads to really connect with each of the jurisdictions. And so they will help facilitate, or whatever you need support, but they will be providing the information of what we need to achieve in terms of this outreach, and in terms of the voter assistance centers and what they need to look like. And we are happy to assist, but we really want this to be a locally driven kind of dialogue to be able to help you guide us on what you're looking at. And we'll give you the feedback and the guidance in terms of, what we need to be able to make these locations successful. And an important part of this too is the messaging, because if we all work together on the messaging about not only vote by mail, but how these vote centers, where they're located, how they're going to function, we will be successful together. So I see it as this, again, an opportunity to do something in a unique way that we're going to make something great come out of all of this.
Great, thanks so much, Jesse. And I want to thank Councilmember Ledesma for I mean, our principal point of contact, of course, is the city clerk, is Yoshina, who I hope you begin to work with already. And she's terrific. She's in terms of actual execution and planning and thought leadership and all of that. Certainly, she should be our principal. And then I know Mr. Ledesma is going to provide some additional connection with the council. But we're really pleased to have an outstanding city clerk as well to work collaboratively. And really appreciate you making the rounds to each of us, all the councils in the county. I didn't know what some of the struggles you've gone through in March, and I'm not surprised because it's you, but it's great to see you getting ahead of these challenges for November and anticipating and putting a good team together. Make sure that with all the other stuff that's going on in the world and all the uncertainty and all the craziness and all the weird and everything else, that everyone gets the every possible opportunity to have their voice heard and to cast their vote. And that you really are going to have to not want to vote in order to miss it this time around. So the combination of what Secretary Padilla is doing, and the governor, and then how you are leading locally and bringing it to life is really important and very much needed. So, Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions regarding the Voter Assistance Center and the poll workers, and the difference between that. Is that like day of voting is the poll worker need, and then is the Voter Assistance Center, is that like a longer term period, and are there hours that you're looking at setting? And then for the drop box, I think you're saying one out here and you want to strategically positioned and maybe thinking of it being outdoors or it being indoors, and just some ideas of what the parameters are around all of that.
Sure. So typically a poll worker in a typical polling place that we've had traditionally is just on election day. So this program will allow for us to have these election centers open for 8 hours on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then a full day on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So there will be a lot more options for people. That's part of the messaging, right? If you don't want to wait in line on election day, hey, you have Saturday, you have Sunday, you have Monday. There'll be plenty of opportunities for you to go in and vote if you want to try. And we're hoping we won't have a long line come election day, but if everybody decides that they're going to hold off, then that's going to be a little problematic at times, of course, because people come in waves. We understand that. The good news is countywide, I don't have the number specifically for West Sacramento, but we're at 72.2% of our registered voters are already in vote by mail. So that was in the March primary. So we're hoping that with that smaller percentage, less than 30%, is in the other category, that we can hopefully spread that out over, the entire time period that I've just outlined, so it's not so long. So that was a poll worker item. The other one is the drop box location. So the way the EO, the executive order reads, and the legislation is for every 15,000 registered voters, you would have one drop box. The way it's drafted is the drop box could be in an inside location. Traditionally, we've had a drop-off location across the street from City Hall. It's been at the library, and we've had it indoors. And if it's indoors and it's literally, it still has to be tied down and secured, and within a location that can be viewed and protected, so to speak, throughout its time that it's available. That works fine. But this other element besides that 1 in 15 is the legislation talks that countywide we can have one outdoor bolted, secured type of drop box that is one per county. I've already found the location I wanted here and it's going to be across the street from my location here in Woodland. But I am interested in seeing one, not only in West Sacramento, but one also in Davis. I want the 3 larger jurisdictions to have the ability to have people just making it convenient for them to drive by and drop off their their ballot boxes. So that's the 24/7 one, but that one's going to take a little bit more work because we want the right location so it's convenient. Plus, we're going to have to actually get some assistance in bolting it down because it's got to be the real deal in terms of the outdoor option. But technically, I only need 2, and the question is, do we need a third one or not, depending on what the group says? But we're going to have to talk about it as a working group, because part of the challenge that I have, and this is part of the other criteria, is we have to develop a program where it's picked up every 48 hours. And those ballots, I don't have the staffing to do it. So we're going to have to be creative in how we make that happen. But again, if we can sit down with the working group, people from the community, the council members, whoever the staff people that'll be working on this, we'll be able to get ahead of this, as Mayor Cabaldan talked about, and think about how we can actually get support in having this staffed, so to speak, so that these locations can be made available in West Sacramento, and we can make it as convenient as possible for voters. So there really is no reason for them not to participate. But we have to be in front of it, right? We have to plan now to be ready for those possibilities. And I think those are your 2 questions. Was there a third one? I want to make sure I got all your questions.
No, I think you answered all the questions, and I think the work group is going to help. Is it a county-wide work group, or is it city specific to the city?
It will be specific to the city. I know it's more work for my staff, but each community is so different, and I want to really cultivate the right answer for West Sacramento, because we need it to be tailored to each jurisdiction. So that's been my approach. That's where I've tried to be in terms of the office, and my staff is great. They know that we're committed to making that happen. So, but we can't do it by ourselves. That's why we're going to need a team effort to make this successful for everybody.
Councilmember Orozco.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take a moment to thank you, Jesse, not only for your presentation and the update, but also for your continued efforts to try to engage not only our youth, but other folks in our community who haven't been traditional voters, educating them not only about the process, but the importance. And as we all know, there's been such an important rise in activism recently, and folks who are now a lot more aware of social justice issues. And I hope that translates into an increase in registered and actual voters. And so in preparation for that, helping these folks navigate a system and making it easy, just a lot of folks don't want to be out there. And so, I mean, hopefully by then we'll be in a better spot. But I appreciate the preparation, and this is what we want, and this is what we support, and this is what we should encourage. So thank you for thinking of this and for the presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just
Councilmember Ledesma.
just a real quick thank you, Jesse. Good to see you as well. And anyway, I don't want to say I was aware of some of the challenges. I wasn't aware of the extent of the challenges you faced in March. But we certainly appreciate you being proactive and coming to us and starting to think about what November may bring and making sure we're as prepared and engaged as a council and as a community. So just want to say thank you for that, and whatever way we can help, I'm sure we'll be behind it. So making it in West Side, trying to find some local drop-off place, I think is a wonderful idea.
Thank you. And to just give you an idea of a timeline, I'm going to need answers and decisions and direction before the end of the summer. So that's why this conversation is so important to be had now, because really by early to mid-August, I need answers so that I can prepare and have enough time to do what needs to be done. So that's why I thank you so much for squeezing me on your agenda so quickly. You were awesome in helping me to find a space to be able to have this conversation with you, because the sooner we can get going, the better.
Well, nothing's more important than the health of our democracy. So of course, we were all happy to do it. We're committed to doing it, and appreciate you taking the time to beam all the way over to West Sacramento from Woodland to join us tonight. And Maria, welcome to the team, and Catherine, welcome to the team as well. And we're looking forward to a great partnership to make sure that, that everyone in our community gets their voice heard in the election. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now going to proceed to the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 16. The city manager has requested that we remove item 9 from consideration in tonight's agenda. So unless there's objection, we'll simply continue that to a future date. Are there other items on consent that any member of the council wishes to remove or identify for separate question or comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, item 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10.
Okay, anyone, any others? All right, so let's.
Mayor Cabaldo
Yeah.
wanted to know if we received 2 public comments for item number 9.
Yes, okay, but and those comments are part of the record, but we're not considering item 9 this evening, so that will be continued to a future meeting. All right, so first is item 3 then, consideration of update of the sewer fund, water fund, and refuse fund analysis and rate implementation for fiscal year 2021. Mr. Guerrero.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had questions regarding the rate increases, and the need for those rate increases was a broad reference, but are there any more specifics related to that?
Sure. This is I want to say fourth year of approved, council approved rate increases. The council approved in 2017, 5 years of rate increases. So those have been inserted into our book of fees. We've been asked to come back subsequent to approving the rate increases or the 5-year rate study. We issued debt in both the water and sewer funds to fund capital projects. And so at that time, council asked us to return each year to provide a financial update to make sure that we could cover that debt without having to do further rate increases. For the sewer fund, if I pull this up, I believe it shows that the rate increases are actually needed to keep the fund from going negative in the second year. So that is one fund where we have a lot of operating expenses comparative to the revenues that we receive. And they also fund a lot of the capital projects. So for the sewer fund, that's a big piece of that. If you were to look at page 3 of the agenda report, we show what the fund will look like with the rate increase and what it will look like without the rate increase. And so it appears as though, let's see, I'm looking at that now, that there is actually not enough net revenue in the year to cover the debt without the rate increase. So we need that increase to continue to make our debt service for the sewer fund. For the water fund, it's a little bit different. The water fund is fairly healthy. However, we've been using up the bond funds, and those are slated to run out by November of this year. So in order to continue to raise funds for capital, there is not room in this fund without raising rates even further to issue any additional debt to fund our capital projects. And so in order to make sure that we've got money in hand for capital projects, we need to make sure that we've got the rate increases. It does result in a little bit of a surplus for the next couple of years, but once those debt funds run out, then we use the funds that have been set aside for the capital projects. And then for the refuse fund, I'm not sure if you were looking at that one. There's 2 pieces to that. There's the waste management portion. They've need to raise their rates by the 4% that is allowed to cover their operational costs. For the city side, we can also increase it by 4%, and we're not proposing an increase to the refuse rates on the city side.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move to item 4, which is consideration of resolution 20-63, approving a budget appropriation and award of contract with Carasoft for electronic signature software. Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, I had a few questions regarding this particular contract, and I believe it's a sole source contract from what I've read, and it's due to COVID-19, and I really do get the background that references the reasons why. And, I think it's attachment number 2, which explains the benefits of having a DocuSign I just had a few questions on whether or not Robert, you've explored working with other jurisdictions and partnered with them to see if we can lower our costs that way. You know, or have researched uses with other jurisdictions to see, you know, what the actual usage rate is. Because I think this one is the unlimited use, where it would, you know, with the city our size, I'm not sure if we needed that many, because unlimited use is pretty expensive. But if you look at a, you know, maybe starting off in the beginning with a limited use and then building it up from there, so people learn how to use it, and it expands the use further out, you know, because it's a sole source and we're ramping up quickly. I read in the history that we have limited experience utilizing it, and given that, how many people have used it so far?
Yeah, evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, so when we looked at it, we did look at a limited use version of it, and we looked at the unlimited version of it. And really the price difference between the two is about $25,000 total. And as far as our current history with using it, over the last 3 months, we've had spots around the city where we have a few employees that are using it right now. And the reason I looked at the unlimited version, that's the one I would recommend, is from my own personal perspective, I have probably signed over 300 documents so far, and that's just from purchases and things alone for signatures. And if we look to roll this out citywide for everything from helping with building permits with the customers to doing contracts, I could see this ballooning. And I don't feel we've implemented systems in the past where we've put limits on things, and I just feel like that limits the adoption of it. And I don't want to hinder the creativity or the ways we can use this to better our services to the public or city staff.
So is the cost associated with the ones that is sending out to get the signature, or is it, so if it's one sender with like 10 contracts, it's that one sender that is the cost? Is that, so I'm just trying to get an idea.
Yes, so how they sell it is really by envelope, and an envelope is a contract or a document that needs signatures. So it could have 100 signatures, the cost is the envelope. The unlimited envelope feature just allows us to send out as many documents or items that need signatures. And we can also, with this contract or with this purchase, use it to collect fees on certain things where we need a signature and we need to get payment for things from citizens. But yeah, it's by envelope, and we'd have unlimited envelopes in this case.
Okay. And so the number of people that have used it so far has been you and any other departments?
Well, actually, not myself. I very little need signatures on stuff, but yes, it's been finance. There have been a few people in finance, and I can't think of the other department that's using it right now.
Human resources and the community outreach have all used it as well.
Just to put it in perspective, I sign probably 5 or more documents per day using DocuSign. So a lot of the signatures end up on my virtual desk. So it's heavily used for that purpose.
Oh no, I believe you definitely will have a lot. Yeah. Okay, it's just price tag. That's why I have a hard time with.
I completely understand that. I have a hard time selling software that seems so expensive, but I do believe this has the potential to change things for us at the city. And you know, in the defense of maybe looking at a limited version, I think going unlimited this year and expanding it out to the city, it will give us a better idea of what our statistical use is come next year. Because I do believe, while we are sole sourcing it based on, you know, the fact that they can provide better security and FedRAMP, I do believe come next year, once we know our usage better, we should do a better bid, a solicitation for it.
And the ability to partner with any other jurisdiction, is that something we might have explored?
Yeah, so with the partnering with the jurisdiction, really that comes down to a pricing point. And we are heavily discounted. They use us with like the city of Palo Alto and things of that nature. It is based on a contract for that. Now that doesn't mean that we can't look in maybe to some joint venture, maybe like in Yolo County and other people that may need this, but that would take some time. And this is more of like an urgent need at the moment.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rob. I know I've each week I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of signatures, just me, and I'm not even an employee. To do on behalf of the council. So we generate a lot of signature responsibilities just through council actions alone. So I get it and definitely supportive. Yeah, item 5, thanks, Rob. Item 5 is consideration of a professional services contract with the ICF Jones and Stokes Incorporated to prepare environmental documentation and preliminary engineering for the I Street Bridge deck conversion for active transportation project. Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick update on given the fiscal situation. Hi, Jason. Just the fiscal situation. Just making sure we moving forward with our partner across the bridge, Sacramento, and their commitment to continue to fund their end of it and receiving the federal. I think we received some federal funding for this. Planning out for the future, whether we're going to be okay or are there any concerns? I just wanted to ask that question, make sure it was out there.
Sure. Thank you, council member. Thank you to the rest of the council and Mr. Mayor, Jason McCoy, Supervising Transportation Planner. Just a quick correction. This is the debt conversion project. So we have not received federally funded grant for this part, but we have for the I Street Bridge replacement project. I know it's a little bit confusing with these names. So with regard to this project in particular, we do not have at this time a cooperative agreement with the city of Sacramento to move forward with either this project together or the next phase of the I Street Bridge replacement project. I will be frank that it has been challenging. What I would expect is that the city of Sacramento will be working with us over a couple of months. I have tentatively scheduled the cooperative agreements for both projects to come before the city council in August. And I'm very hopeful that we will see progress on that front. There has been a challenge as far as the agreement to move forward with the debt conversion project. There is a council resolution and action on the part of the city council from Sacramento. However, there has been a lot of delay. And at this point, we as city staff don't recommend waiting any longer as for the debt conversion project, as we are working to secure grant funding in the future through ATP Cycle 5, as well as the SACOG Regional to move forward with the subsequent final design, right-of-way, and ultimately construction for the debt conversion project. In order to be competitive for that, we want the environmental, including SEGRA NEPA, to be complete. That is why we are moving forward at this time, even without a cooperative agreement. In addition to that, City Council has already set aside funding in order to complete a portion of the PAED. The contract that has moved forward is significant budget that we can go ahead and move forward without the commitment of additional funding from Sacramento. That being said, the Sacramento City Council did state that they want to see some additional work put into the I Street Bridge debt conversion project, including a benefit cost analysis. I did in the agenda report that at this time, we are not recommending putting that in until such time as the City of Sacramento allocates funding to do that work. So we are planning to move forward. I am very hopeful that we're going to see some cooperation and that we will see an agreement moving forward the next couple of months.
Thank you. So if we do spend this funding and move forward as recommended, is there, and then there could be a position where Sacramento says we change our mind, we don't want to do this. But have you seen a signal that they're not going to change their mind?
The fact that we're moving forward with the I Street Bridge replacement project, and there are significant challenges with funding, especially with regard to the Highway Bridge Program and the amount of funds that can be authorized within a given fiscal year for the project. But we feel, we being both city staffs, feel that we have significant means to overcome some of those hurdles. We're working on them. I have assurances from city staff in Sacramento that are, including the project manager, that they are interested in moving forward with the debt conversion project. I have a resolution from the city council in Sacramento that they are interested in moving forward, and I am holding on to those commitments as a means to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Jason. That helps. It's really tough to think about spending this kind of money without the level of commitment that's needed to move forward. That's all.
For some assurance,
Jason, let me just interrupt because I want to encourage. Sometimes on the video, our culture is changing a little bit. If there isn't a direct question, I want to encourage staff not to feel like as though you need to comment on the comments that council members are making. Just for protocol purposes, and it's just not directed just at you, Jason. It's been a weekly occurrence, just a reminder in that regard. I'm very supportive of this. I mean, the prospect of us taking down the only connection between Broderick and Bright and the central city of the region and not replacing it in some way is unacceptable. That I will not allow that to happen. So yes, a small amount of money to continue the project going forward is absolutely essential. And we're going to end up spending more money on it, and others will too, because that connection directly to downtown, not to the rail yards, but to downtown is absolutely critical for our residents and for our small businesses, for the Devil May Cares and the West Sides and the Rays and the Burgers and Brew. They depend on that connection. So it's not two different projects. It's a single project to remove cars and off of the existing I Street Bridge and create a new crossing that is multimodal and retain this connection as part of that, to upgrade and modernize that connection. So for me, there's absolutely no question. It's not whether we should be supportive of this or not. Of course we should. Our residents, and particularly neighbors in the north and business owners in the north, are absolutely insistent and dependent on this connection remaining. They can't make it by simply connecting to an empty rail yards instead, right? The folks who work for state agencies and others that are downtown, they need this connection to continue. So I actually have sort of the opposite point of view, which is I would be very reluctant if I were the city manager to bring forward any more funding by us or agreements by us for the main replacement project until we get the cooperative agreement on the deck replacement project. They are a single project, and we need to. We can't be asking the question: is the benefit worth the cost? That's not. We're not doing that with the replacement bridge either. This is a single project. You can't just split out the benefits to us versus them, and of course the benefits to them of being able to access the business La Crosta. That's where the whole bridge all by itself. Right? The benefit isn't just to West Sacramento; it's to the whole urban core. So I'm definitely supportive of this tonight. It's completely consistent with what our community's highest priorities have been in terms of maintaining and expanding connectivity for our residents and businesses across the river, for sure. And if anything, I think we need to make it very clear to our colleagues across the river that we can't keep proceeding on one part of the project without good faith progress on the other two. Okay, item 6 then. Thanks, Jason. Thanks so much. Item 6 is consideration of approval of a 2-year contract renewal with Nomad Transit LLC, that's VIA, extending the West Sacramento on-demand rideshare program through fiscal year 21-22, and resolution 20-53 allocating up to $2.032 million to support operations through fiscal year 2021. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, listening to Councilmember Ledesma's report on scaling back, looking at scaling back, using public transportation. And I think it's also because of the economic impact and seeing, how the limited use right now is currently happening. And we did have an update about that. Thank you, Sarah, from your last presentation. I think it's whether or not we're going to continue to use it at current level and if the expenditure for the current level is it, you know, just seeing whether, you know, how it's going to be ramping up to be able to continue to fund it at the current level of usage. If there's a, you know, and I know we're bringing this back, we had a discussion, but just seeing what your thoughts are about that.
Sure. You may recall at the presentation that I made on May 20th that I had discussed, we had similar to YCTD, more than halved the level of service that we were putting on the streets in terms of the number of vehicles that we're serving. We didn't change any of the hours of operation, but went down from about 11 vehicles down to 5 vehicles maximum when the stay-at-home order was put in place. We have started to see ridership creep back up a little bit this past few weeks. It is still nominal, but we've started to see it creep into the 1,600 to 1,800 rides per week range, whereas it was down at 1,200 during the stay-at-home order. And that is compared to what was reaching about 4,000 rides per week before the pandemic hit. But that being said, the kind of the beauty of this program is that it's built to scale with demand. So as I had talked about at my last report, we're being conservative and asking for the full allocation as though we were going to operate service with a full fleet, but in all likelihood, we will not expend that full amount. However, given the uncertainty in how quickly ridership may or may not rebound, we thought it better to ask for the allocation than to have to return to council at a later date to ask for more money.
Thank you for the clarification, Sarah.
Any other questions or comments on item 6?
Yes.
Oh,
Mine's brief. I just wanted to comment. I imagine that there may be a situation where there are some folks that are over the age of 65 or medically vulnerable who may be refraining from using the system right now just due to health concerns. But one would surmise that as we become healthier as a community, assuming that that's the direction we're going, that they would be rejoining the users of VIA, correct? And so, I mean, it's important to me. I mean, this transit system is a lifeblood for a lot of folks in our community who are never getting out before. And we've heard testimony after testimony attesting to that. And so I'm fully supportive of the recommendation. And I appreciate the fact that Jude clarified that we do scale it back according to whether or not we're in fact having the need for expanded service or to needing to refrain from having them all out there. So again, Sarah, thank you so much for your thoughtful presentation.
thank you. Councilmember Ledesma.
Yeah, and just to Councilmember Guerrero, yeah, I appreciate your comment around listening to the YCTD report, because I just want to underscore Sarah's point is around the scalability, which is the point to remember with YCTD is just 2 different types of transit operators with a lot of fixed costs on the YCTD side, which makes it very difficult to scale, which is what we're running into, which is why the lifesaver for us this year literally is the CARES Act money that's coming in, and that we can help carry the budget. And to Sarah's point, we're much easier to scale down this service than YCTD, which we have the cost. The district has those costs no matter what. And so again, I think that's just something to kind of keep in mind, the way I differentiate those 2 things. And I continue to be supportive of VIA, of course. And I think we do need to just kind of, the only similar thing is just managing ridership as we're doing, and people are starting to use it. And I'm seeing the drivers wear masks that they're as instructed. It's safe. And I think it is still a very good option for our community. Will continue. I support continuing to invest in. So I just want to clarify that one point.
Yeah, just to put an exclamation point behind the points that you've made is so one of our illustrious former residents who took a position as the George Schultz Professor of Management Economics at MIT just released one of Mayor Pro Tem Sandine's former neighbors and a really distinguished nationally known economist just released a study that looked at those factors that are related to COVID-19 deaths. One of the most exhaustive studies so far done in that space. And one of the most significant findings was this one: higher public transit use is correlated with higher death rates in all models. So all models that were studied, the different specifications. And that's after omitting the 5 counties that make up New York City. Right? So we're not looking at the New York City metro system as the effect here. It's regular transit that exists elsewhere. It's the only form of mobility. It's the only form of mobility for which that's a problem.
Is my microphone broken up again?
It was a little better at the end there.
It was? Okay, I'm just
keep trying to switch microphones. Is that better or worse? The same.
Better.
Okay. All right, I'll press ahead. So the yeah, so this effect is it's real, right? And so we have a public health obligation to provide every possible alternative. It's not a question of bemoaning the fact that people aren't using transit due to COVID-19. It's understanding that to some extent their concerns are well-founded. That being in a bus with other people, especially where there's conversations happening, is shown to have an effect in these kind of correlational studies. And we have to, for folks that depend on mobility that cannot be achieved by walking or biking, we have to have reasonable and meaningful alternatives. And the VIA service is one of the suite of those alternatives. So this is to me, it's a really important moral and economic and equity issue to have this service both continue, but also be scalable to meet whatever the need that might emerge is as a result of the situation that we're in now.
All right, so that brings us then. Thanks, Sarah. Great work, and thanks for the work on all the negotiations. I actually did want to question: is the Transportation Mobility Commission, have they met yet to give us their feedback and advice on the overall system of VIA yet? Or?
Yeah, I did include in the report. We were able to conduct a special meeting with the TMI Commission on June 8th. They didn't make a motion to pass along any specific feedback, but they were generally supportive. And had some of the similar questions as the council had presented on May 20th. But they were continued to share their support for the continuance of the program.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so by prior order, we've already removed item 9 from the agenda. So the last remaining item on consent take up is item 10, which is consideration of approval of a contract extension for janitorial services provided to the city of West Sacramento and resolution 20-51 amending the book of fees for facility rentals. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a couple of questions on, the extension of the contract. There have been some statutory changes recently made as it relates to sexual harassment. And a whole bunch of other changes that have been made in the last year. And wage theft was another one. And in addition to the length of the contract, I just wanted to get an idea of, it was kind of like an additional 6 months if there was a consideration of a shorter period and compared to the longer period, and what thought process that was behind all of that. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. So yeah, that's a good question. Basically, we thought about the 6-month continuance, and that would give us plenty of ample time to go through the process and out to the public, the staff report going back and forth. We could consider a lesser of a 6-month. I'll talk to the city manager and also Heather Brophy as our business manager. We'll put something together. We can't expedite that as fast as we can, but we can get back to you on that.
I just want to reiterate, though, that we asked for 6 months with this extension to give us ample time we're going to have to reissue an RFP. That takes time. We need to do additional outreach, as was noted in the prior item when we had this on the agenda before. we don't anticipate it taking a full 6 months to get the entire process done, but I also don't want to have to come back for another extension. So we'd ask for that flexibility, but obviously we can make that process as efficient as possible. But there needs to be another RFP, more review, and then contract negotiations and the staff work that goes along with that. So 6 months seems like a reasonable amount of time to give us that flexibility.
Thank you. Appreciate the background.
Okay, then with that, we have the consent agenda before us, minus item 9. So it's items 3 through 16 without item 9.
Can I pull item 4 off that item for a separate vote?
Sure, of course. Okay, so we'll take all the items up except for item 4. And again, item 9 is no longer on the agenda for this evening. So is there a motion on the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Orozco and seconded by Councilmember Guerrero. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. This is for the consent agenda items, except for item number 4. Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldan.
Aye.
And for consent item number 4.
So the main consent item passes. The motion carries. So
Yes.
for item number 4, then is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on item 4?
Let's start with Councilmember Guerrero.
No.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldan.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries as well, and that concludes the consent agenda. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to item 17, which is a public hearing in consideration of Resolution 20-57, calling an election for the purpose of submitting the levy of the Community Facilities District B, Newport Estates Services, to the qualified electors of the area proposed to be annexed. And Resolution 20-58, declaring the results of the special election and conduct first reading of Ordinance 20-03, levying and apportioning a special tax in annexation number 3. Cooper?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. This is the third annexation to the CFD, so it's not necessarily new business. In fact, the annexation number 2 happened just about a year ago. The city likes to look to new development in the Southport area in particular, but all over, to provide for certain maintenance services through a CFD or an HOA. Sometimes a combination of the two. Typically, the cost of the maintenance for these types of items exceeds the amount that can be elected or received through increased taxes. So tonight's action would annex the River Oak subdivision into the Newport Estates Service CFD or CFDB. At the May 6th meeting, the council adopted a resolution of intent to annex the River Oak subdivision, and the boundary map was subsequently filed with the county. The annexation process is very similar to the CFD formation process, and we're asking the City Council to hold a public hearing prior to considering the resolution that provides for the declaring the results of the special election, and then conduct the first reading of Ordinance 20-3, which would allow for the levy of the special tax rate to the development. The development is 116 single-family homes on 19.3 gross acres. So as the mayor stated, Resolution 20-58 provides the results of the special election with all 20 votes in favor of the annexation. And so I would ask you to hold a public hearing and then consider both resolutions and conduct the first reading of the ordinance. Just to let you know, staff intends to return to council on July 15th to hold the second reading and consider adoption of Ordinance 20-3.
All right, thank you, Ms. Raper. Are there questions for Ms. Raper at this time? Councilmember Guerrero?
Oh, no, I don't have a question, sorry.
All right, then we'll open the public hearing on item 17. Madam Clerk, have we received any public testimony on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. There are no public comments for this item.
All right, thank you very much.
Ms. Rayford, let me just also, have we received any other communications outside of the regular meeting process on this topic? Other than
No, none at all.
All right, then we'll close the public hearing on item 17 and return it to the council for any further question, discussion, or motion. Councilmember Guerrero.
Move to, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Martha.
Okay, move to approve.
Second.
All right, moved by Councilmember Guerrero and seconded by Councilmember Ledesma. Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldon.
Aye, that motion carries. That brings us to item 18, which is consideration of adoption of resolution 20-61, approving a temporary fee schedule for Learning Ladder Summer Camp due to COVID-19.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Tracy Michael, Parks and Recreation Director. This report seeks council's approval of a temporary fee schedule for Learning Ladder Preschool for their summer camp program due to operational modifications triggered by COVID-19. I'm pleased to share this week Learning Ladder reopened, and it's been a great process so far. As mentioned in the agenda report, we have new ratio requirements for the licensed portion of the facility, which limits the number of students we can serve to 10. That's significantly lower than the 24 we typically serve in each classroom. This created a need for overflow space in order to serve all of our Learning Ladder families that wanted to bring their students back. So we took advantage of the community center being empty right now and created a non-licensed summer camp program downstairs in the community room. In fact, the image you see behind me is that has been transformed into a classroom space. The new programs targeted for our recent graduates of Learning Ladder and students ranging in age from 6 to 8 years old. And it's a little more structured than our typical youth and sports camps. We used a very straightforward process to propose the new fee, which includes prorating the typical Learning Ladder fee based on slightly reduced hours, and also a discount just due to the non-licensed and non-traditional space of the program. So based on this approach, we respectfully recommend that the council adopt resolution 20-61, approving the temporary fee schedule for this new camp program. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Michael. Councilmember Orozco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As many of you know, I have 2 small children and benefited from the use of Learning Ladder as a parent and love the program. Unfortunately, with all that's been going on, we haven't had the opportunity to put on our traditional sports camp and Camp Lakeside and all the activities that we have available traditionally for families in West Sacramento. And tonight I have the benefit of sitting on my porch, and as I'm sitting here during this council meeting, there are folks walking by, pushing their strollers, walking their kids, enjoying the evening. And it just brings it back to the fact that the complexion of West Sacramento, it's always been a family-oriented community. But even in my own neighborhood here in the State Streets, the complexion of the folks that are walking the streets is different. And there's a lot more families with young kids who are investing in the smaller homes and getting that experience. And with them, they comes the need for programs just like this. And it's a shame that we weren't able to put on the sports camp or Lakeside or any of the others. But again, I'm grateful for the effort that we're trying to do with this program. And at first I had some questions about, well, okay, why 600? And I get it. I see why we would want to reduce because of the hours. It comes out to what, 150 a week, which is a little bit more than what a sports camp would be. But of course you have a sports camp for the entire day. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a fantastic effort, and I commend you for thinking of this. And let's hope that some more folks get a little bit relief as parents go back to work. So thank you, Tracy. And with that stated, I also want to just take a moment, because I know we've had these conversations before in the past, Tracy. I know there's a high demand, and I mean, it's probably going to be even a bigger demand, after we all get back to work full time. But I remember, what is it? And I think it was the year before last, the systems crashed because there was so much demand for people that were trying to sign up for the very first day, both in line and online, so physically and over the internet. I would love to know whether or not we're meeting the need out there for our families with children who, because there was complaints, you watch it on social media, oh, I couldn't get in, I couldn't get in. But our primary goal isn't to satisfy every single person in this community with childcare. That's not it. But to the extent that we can consider other programs such as coding or computers. It doesn't have to necessarily be sports. I'd just love to consider some opportunities if we have the resources to do that. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you, Tracy, for the creativity in allowing the use of another facility to expand Learning Ladder and accommodating all those individuals that need a place for childcare, and seeing that, working, in the childcare industry, just knowing that it's a safe place for them, and parents have the flexibility to go to work and have a location where we know that they're going to be safe and meeting their needs to be able to go back to work and feel comfortable during this very stressful time. So thank you for everything you've done, Tracy. It's a really big deal for families, and I want to applaud your work on that.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Thank you. I'll join the song of thanks. I do have a question though, just for clarification. When people hear the word unlicensed, you think of unlicensed drivers or unlicensed something. Could you talk us through that and share with us reasons not to be alarmed about an unlicensed program? Thanks.
Sure. I'm certainly not the expert on the licensed childcare requirements, but all of the summer camp programs that we typically run are not licensed childcare facility programs. They're summer camp programs. With a licensed facility, you have to have the space license. There are requirements that you have to meet with the physical space. There are requirements with the faculty, the teachers that work in the facility, and the hours of operation. So with more limited hours, with a non-traditional space, we still have our preschool teachers teaching the summer camp program. They're amazing teachers, but there was no way for us to get this new space and the curriculum licensed by the state in time to provide the space for our families, and we didn't want to turn any families away. So it's a very high quality program. It's just not licensed by the state, that's all. And it's, none of our camp programs during the summer are licensed childcare programs. I hope that helps clarify a little bit.
Oh, thank you. No, it does. I understand it. I just when you hear that, it sounds like, why are they doing something unlicensed? Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem Sandine. I also want to agree and applaud you, Tracy, and Kaisa, and the rest of the team that have been working to make this reality. Figuring out how to put all the pieces together and make sure that as many families and young people can get served as possible. Since you're showing a room that you're going to be repurposing, we could offer this one behind me also. If we're not doing much activities in there, if you want to use that for a third building for additional camps as well. But really creative, focused work that's very, very much needed in the community and meeting a real need. So thank you for what you've done so far, and we're all looking forward to hearing the sounds of the community center be filled again with the voices of excitement and learning and also relieves parents as well as we get underway. Thank you. Councilmember Ledesma?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again as well, Tracy. Great work by the team, and echo all of the comments from my colleagues. Just really great work, and happy for the families. And if you're ready for it, Mr. Mayor, I'll offer a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 2061.
Second, please.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Ledesma and seconded by Councilmember Orozco. Is there any further question or debate? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabalden.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries as well. Thank you. That brings us then to item 19, which is consideration of amendment number 2 to the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce contract for COVID-19 business recovery services, and resolution 20-64 authorizing a budget amendment in the Measure G Community Investment Fund 106 in fiscal year 2021. And I'd also note, just as that we have received one public comment on this item as well. That is available on the website for the public, and that it has been also provided directly to each member of the council. Ms. Richard.
Good evening, Mayor Cabalden and members of the City Council. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to come up for air, so to speak, from our work with businesses that have been struggling with the pandemic. And I'm here tonight to request City Council approval of a contract amendment with the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce to provide recovery services, to continue to provide recovery services to our business community. The current scope of work has been in place since June of 2018, and it's served us very well until mid-March when everything changed, not only for us, but also for our businesses. The Chamber was our first contact that we made, reaching out in the middle of this crisis for our businesses, and they responded immediately to assist us with new ways of outreach and to assist us in identifying contacts, reaching out to businesses, becoming experts on all the resources that are available to businesses at this time, and staying in touch with the evolving health orders and all the things that businesses were grappling with immediately, in this very short compressed time frame. It quickly became clear that one of the greatest needs was our small business community, and over 50% of our businesses in West Sacramento are small businesses with less than 20 employees, and by some reports even more than that. So those businesses really were responding to our information, and so we activated a program. We began meeting with the Chamber every week to coordinate our response, reaching out to businesses, improving our business contact list. I'd like to share a few of the things that we have done over these past 3 months with the partnership of our Chamber of Commerce. We've held weekly meetings, as I said, and that was really to allocate resources and to bring on the entire Chamber team, Denise, Austin, and Andrea. We immediately reached out to businesses together. We conducted 3 business surveys. We're in the middle of the final survey right now, so that we could assess the needs of what businesses needed right now, what their urgent needs were, and how we could respond to that immediately. We've also monitored, as I said, the resources that were available. We became experts at the SBA loan programs and the PPP and how those all worked and how businesses could tap into that and get those resources. So these, this was immediate response that we had to jump into, and the Chamber was there for us and immediately responded. One of the other things that I thought was really, really innovative that has been a great help to us, honestly, in assessing business needs is the power hours. And I think it's really a brilliant way of connecting with businesses directly to ask them, what do you need? What are your urgent needs right now? How can we help you? And this is building off the outreach that we're doing, the emails that we're sending, the website updates. We both launched immediate, website overhauls to provide as many resources as we could. But these power hours were very powerful, and we had great response to them. We've held, with the Chamber really leading that effort, we have held 12 of those starting in late March. And there are more planned for June and July, and the businesses have said they want them to continue because it's been really valuable, not only to hear from us and what we might be able to do for them, but for businesses to talk with one another and to hear what's working for them, what are they learning, what do they know about PPP, what do they know about the forgiveness portion. All these, these myriad regulations that businesses were trying to navigate. So it's been a huge benefit to have the Chamber as our partner, critical and vital partner right now. Another thing that they launched in April 29th, was the West Sac Takeout. And as you recall, our restaurants really, the small businesses that were struggling really are restaurants, leisure, retail, personal services. So the restaurants were just struggling with suddenly being shut down. And West Sac Takeout was a great, relief, because it allowed businesses to be, for us to promote them, to let them know who's open, allow them to, really accelerate their takeout business. And it's not enough. I mean, we know that. They're all excited to be able to reopen now, but West Sac Takeout had a huge following, and just since April 29th, over 56,000 social media, touches and likes. So it's been very important, and it actually helped businesses that were on the edge about doing takeout. We actually heard from restaurants saying, we're gonna do this. We're gonna open for takeout. So that was a real success for us. That again, through the leadership of our chamber and their team, that was a very great benefit to our restaurant community. The businesses now are starting to reopen. They're, they've all, the majority of them have been released. They're starting to reopen. People are starting to get out again. It's really a critical time for us now and for the businesses. And that's why we think that right now is a great time to continue this recovery service program that we're doing with the chamber, to continue with the West Sac Takeout. They have a new campaign that they've launched called Support Dreams that is really going to accelerate shop local and emphasize our local family-owned and local resident businesses that are here, that are really the most vulnerable and are working so hard every day just to stay open. Support Dreams is a long-term campaign. It will actually have a number of deliverables that I know that the CEO, Denise Stomke, will like to expand on, and she's present with us tonight. But right now, it's really reopening safely and making sure that businesses have masks. And the chamber stepped up and said, we'll help you. We will help you deliver 30,000 masks into the community so that we can do this safely, and that businesses have masks for themselves, employees, the customers, and everyone else. Support Dreams is banners, signs, advertising, social media, videos of local restaurant owners and retailers, as well as local officials such as yourselves that have participated in that. And it's really getting a lot of traction. It's also had thousands of posts and likes, and it really has the ability to impact and benefit our businesses in the near term during the recovery. So we're excited about that. The revised scope of services includes an additional $10,000 of compensation for this year only, primarily to continue those business recovery services, as well as launch Support Dreams and keep it going through the end of the year when it's so critical right now to those businesses through the end of the year. We're also requesting a one-year extension of the contract from October 2020 to October of 2021, because we all know this is going to be somewhat of a slow and an uneven and prolonged recovery. We know that. I mean, we're all reading the news reports. It will take time. So we would like to request your approval. We're recommending that the contract be extended for 1 year, and that we provide additional compensation of $10,000 to the chamber to launch this Support Dreams and continue that through December of 2020, as well as continue these vital recovery services that they've been doing already for several months through October of 2021. The chamber will be coming back to you in October of this year to do their normal report on their contract services. So you will be seeing them again for that report. And I just want to say, how beneficial it has been to city staff to be able to really extend our reach. Both Elijah and myself and Denise and Austin and Drea at the chamber, we have been a unified team. We've met weekly to really, allocate resources and make sure that we're getting that vital information and resources out to the business community. So with that, I conclude my remarks, and happy to take questions, as well as let you know that Denise Stomke is also available for questions.
All right, I don't see Denise in the room. Oh wait, there she is. All right.
There she is.
All right. So are there questions for Diane or for Denise, the chair of the CEO of the chamber?
Are you going to take public comment first, or are we going to? I just wanted to know when to ask questions, before or after.
Yeah. So we're taking the questions right now. So Councilmember Orozco was first up.
It's less of a question as much as it is just a comment. Would you like me to reserve, or is that okay?
It's okay. Yeah. I mean, so
okay.
we have received one letter, public comment, and it's from Denise's board chair, the chair of the board of directors for the West Sacramento Chamber of Commerce, Chelsea Miner, who works with Rayleigh's, which is one of our premier corporate headquarters here in West Sacramento. So that's the comment that we have received. But so Councilmember Orozco, go ahead.
Thank you. It is an unprecedented time, and there is a tremendous amount of need by all members of our community, but especially by folks who, like one wise man just had said before, that have invested their life savings and put it on the line in order to make a dream come true. And they've invested in West Sacramento. And these are the people who, if you walk to Memorial Park right now, you're going to see banner after banner after banner of local businesses, many of whom are on the chambers, are members of the Chamber of Commerce, but others who just want to give back. These are the people that support our little leagues. These are people that are supporting the downtown streets team, just like Rayleigh's and Grocery Outlet and other businesses in our community, and also some projects like Project Room Key. Our businesses give back, and our chamber supports our businesses. And so to me, I know that it's pretty much, I'm a yes, I'm an absolute support. It's an investment, but it's an investment in the right place. And frankly, I appreciate all that the chamber has done. I appreciate my colleagues in participating in the support dreams and going to local businesses and encouraging members of our community to come out and support, because there were a lot of folks who probably would have never considered before. You know, we go with what we know, and now we are expanding our horizons and appreciating more that our West Sac community has to offer. So I'm in full support, and I thank you for the presentation, Diane, and thanks for being here, Denise.
All right. Thanks, Councilmember Orozco. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to, say that I appreciate what you've done for the community. I know it's been really challenging, and a lot of businesses have been struggling in visiting those businesses and encouraging our community to come in and, provide the support, and, getting the word out through Support Dreams as well. I also want to thank Diane Richards, was on one of the Zoom meetings with the businesses, and just a huge resource of knowledge and support. That the partnership with the chamber is very good. I appreciate that partnership very much, and like to continue to see that as we move forward, because in the restoration of all community, all of our businesses, whether it be here or across the bridge, and enticing people to come and shop and spend their money out here. I think it's extremely important. And so the West Sac Takeout, I think, was a great way to get people to get back, when we were in the shelter in place. And, it's still, I think, it's still really challenging. And then just making sure that new businesses who are not chamber members, I'd like to make sure that they are active participants, whether it be to be included in a list that is disseminated among businesses, because that's, I think, a good way to draw them in and to be thankful once their businesses is blooming in the future, but also to provide them with the PPE and other resources that they need, so that they can, and knowledge of how to access if you don't have the resources. And in addition to that, as the city is expanding on the testing, so that the testing and tracing, to be able to partner with you on that, so that we can get the word out to our community where our testing centers are, because it's really going to be through tracking that with our business community as well, that we can identify, who was where, and then try to mitigate the spread of COVID, because I think that is still looming over a lot of people, a lot of people's minds. And in addition, I know the Great Plates program was a short-term model, but I anticipate that we're going to have more programs in the future. I think that we have some ideas that are coming out at the federal and state level. So to the extent that getting the word out for them to participate in programs like that, I think is beneficial for our restaurants. And so that way they can, engage in getting additional subsidy, but also maximizing what they're really good at, in delivery and of their goods. So in, just expanding on the opening, making sure that all businesses have the resources and the knowledge with their portal website or through the city. Just give us back any intel you have on where we're needing to expand that outreach and continue that partnership. Thank you.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to echo a lot of the kudos going out to the chamber, Denise and team, great job. And I'll get into a little bit of that as well, but I know Denise, my neighbor, has told me on a few occasions, the city staff has been terrific during this whole time. So Diane and team, great job of everything you've done to support our business community around town. I think that a couple of things that I want to come on. I mean, I'm always kind of thinking about what's next, right? Denise knows me well enough to know, and I will say, you've done a terrific job, both the city and the chamber in this partnership. I'm fully supportive of this because we're going to need you for whatever's next. You did a terrific job of getting your arms around and quickly becoming experts in what maybe go down as one of the most turbulent, fast-moving programs ever enabled through the PPP program. And there's still Main Street lending, which is opening, which we should become educated on as well through the Treasury. And you guys did a terrific job in informing our businesses about that and being a resource for them. And that was helpful. But where the investment here is really on what you started to do and starting to survey companies and starting to listen. It's very hard to listen to our business community, and it's easy to talk to business owners at the restaurants or the places you frequent all the time. But really where I'm listening for are a little deeper into those who are actually moving goods or producing things and the challenges they face that kind of keep our economy going. And so for me, I think Diane mentioned this a little bit, we're going to need you during this recovery to kind of understand kind of where they are as well. So to me, this is a big investment to start thinking about issues that we can either policy issues that will support our business growth or get it back to growth going forward. Because I think about things like, of course, I think about things like important issues about access to capital. We don't know how that post PPE, what that looks like. And for those who want to expand or grow, that's going to be an important issue. We've already started delving into a little bit about how COVID impacts land use decisions we made, and things like the ability to move into streets or parking lots we've seen from other cities to make sure there's space. Those are issues we need to listen for on all sectors. And as well as if we can enact those things that we may need going forward to advocate at the federal level. Congress is sort of weighing the same things. They're still looking at small business, and they're still looking at additional aid, but as you're all aware, they're on a bit of a pause to kind of understand where things are. And I think we're going to need your voice to kind of to advocate to our federal officials or use our own inroads to kind of inform us about where we can be helpful next, because getting through the recovery is going to, and being on the forefront of the curve is going to be really important. So I kind of said, like, great job to you. I can't say it enough about all the work that was done at the initial kind of cliff that we hit when COVID hit. But this to me is really what's next around the investment we are making into you, about keeping our ear to the ground and what are we hearing, so we know where we can turn our attention and be agile and react. But So I wholeheartedly support this, and thank you for all the work you've done. So thank you, Denise.
Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this modest investment will serve the city and the community well. I think we've already, this has been shared, we've already seen benefits from the basically instant action that happened to become a resource, and the collaboration between the city and the chamber in this case, in this manner. Businesses, just like all of us individually, were in shock mode at the beginning and really needed a place to turn. And the chamber was there, and in conjunction with the economic development department here. And in order to have a vital community, we really do need to do what we can to support the business community. And I think this is, in order to come out of this and have the recovery be as smooth. There's still so much uncertainty. So knowing that we're collecting data, knowing that we identify needs, knowing that we have the creativity of the chamber with some of the marketing that's being done. I want to commend you, Denise, and your colleague in the chamber, and the colleagues here in the city, the folks in the city, to do this work that's really vital during this incredibly uncertain time. Again, I think this is a modest investment and it will serve us well, so I'm supportive.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of it. I'll say why in a moment. In a non-Denise related comment though, I'm not supportive of doing this out of Measure G. I think this is a general fund obligation. It is a core function of the city. And Measure G, Mr. Ledesma wrote it, but those funds are to be spent to fund community investment projects such as streets, bridges, transportation, parks, and public infrastructure. It is a redevelopment construction replacement. And I know our city manager will say, oh, but redevelopment also was allowed to fund economic development on an operational basis. But Measure G didn't say we're going to replace redevelopment entirely. It said we're going to fund community investment projects that way. This is such a central function of what we do as a city. And it belongs in the general fund. It's also an infinitesimal amount of money that we're talking about. $10,000. I mean, given what my colleagues have all said about what they're hoping the chamber will do with our new investment in the chamber, $10,000 is a modest amount of funding over the course of a year, given what's already been undertaken and underway with the Support Dreams campaign. So I want to thank our staff for negotiating well, and Denise and her colleagues at the chamber for just the creativity of being able to both launch and implement and execute very effective programming and efforts that accomplish the goals that we've talked about tonight, but also be able to do it on what is essentially a shoestring budget. And this is more of the city saying we support you than it is a sort of a massive investment in a program. The extent to which that we can use our CDBG funds and any other other funding that's available to help us with relief and response that may happen in the future. We have to certainly consider doing that in this vein. But I think this is it's a really important show of support and a set of resources in conjunction with our staff. But it's the chamber's members that are doing it, and as has been said, all the risks that they're taking, just being small business owners and all of the challenges, and then the fact that those challenges change every single day. Even with Support Dreams, the chamber was trying to be nimble each moment. Well, what are the case rates look like today, and what is the county going to announce? And that's just the chamber. And you think about the poor restaurant or ice cream shop or whatever that's trying to figure out what am I supposed to do? And I want to stay safe, but I also don't want to lose all of my customers to somebody else that opens up across the river early. And it's just really hard economically and psychologically, and the mental health of so many of our small businesses is just as challenged, if not more so than everyone else that's had to go through this. And to see folks, these small business owners step up throughout the community and persevere through, and say, look, Jess is out there trying to support, folks with, grocery services and ice cream, and Brian next door. It's like, I've never sold more bikes, but I'm working like a dog, and I've helped tutor my son in algebra while I fix these bikes. And everyone's coming up with really creative, unique solutions, trying to figure it out. And the least that we can do as a community is support them, both through the campaigns and programming, and then of course with our dollars, and keeping it local when we shop and buy and use services, and as a city too. So I'm definitely supportive of this, and I think to me it's so important and so fundamental that our core it does belong as a core funding appropriation from the general fund rather than from the Measure G. So, City Manager?
Yes, you said Measure G, so my camera went on. I just wanted to clarify the rationale for why that funding source was proposed. The Economic Development and Housing Division's operating fund is out of the Community Investment Fund, and including the professional services budget, which includes the chamber contract. So that's why it was an extension of the funding that already goes to the contract. But I think if with an amendment to the resolution, we can certainly figure out if the desire among the council is to find a way to fund that with general fund, the $10,000 increase, we could find a way to do that instead. So.
Yeah, I'd appreciate doing that. I think that when we carved out the Measure G allocations, I think we were pretty clear. We don't want this to get out of hand. We don't want to treat it as though it's the Economic Development Department's sort of their discretionary fund for allocations. It's not that. It's a critical source of funding, and for a lot of reasons that we don't need to go into right now, it's a funding source that is facing some significant challenges at the moment. So we just don't have the flexibility in that account really to be doing that as a matter of policy. But if we didn't have that account, we would definitely be funding this out of the general fund, because one of the most fundamental functions that we have as a city is maintaining not just our local economy, but the fabric of the community in terms of the kind of support for Little League and things that every member of the council has already said tonight. And it's just so fundamental, and it belongs as a general fund expenditure, in my view. All right, are there other questions or comments on the item? And Denise, if you did you want to add any additional? I mean, the rule of these things is when you count your votes and you get to 3, you just stop talking. But you're at 5, so it sounds like you're at 5. So you're probably safe if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the council. A point of clarity about the program and the work that we've been doing with Economic Development and Housing Department is that this is a citywide effort for all businesses in West Sacramento. We've been able to combine both the nimbleness and the resources of the chamber and the leadership of the chamber, our board of directors, and the business license list and business contact list on the city side to come up with a really effective list that in any of these programs, the power hours, certainly in the mask, we're contacting businesses immediately. The PIO office has been really out to the broader community. And as a result, not only are we providing good resources and feedback for businesses, but we're enabling them to talk with each other, to listen to each other, to share ideas with each other. And that's been as rewarding in this process in a very difficult time as probably anything has. So thank you all for your support. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, be sure and call at the chamber office. And I'm hitting mute now.
All right. Well, let me just add that, for especially business owners, but also community leaders all know that Denise retired from the chamber. Denise came back to the chamber because she was needed. She wasn't planning on being here right now. But Denise never walks away from a chance to do good, and she saw her duty to the community and to the small businesses and to the people that they support. And I just want to, on behalf of the community, say thank you to Denise for a very challenging time when I think you were hoping to be retired, for sticking with it and sticking with it in a way that inspired a lot of other people to step up and to really make a difference. So thank you very much. All right then, so we have the item before us.
I'll move the recommended action.
And I'll second.
With an adjustment to the general fund.
To amend the budget resolution to switch the funding source to the general fund, if that's what the council wants to do.
With that amendment, thank you.
All right, and so the move by Councilmember Ledesma. I'm sorry, who was the second? I heard
Orozco.
Councilmember Orozco. All right. Then, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabalden.
Aye. All right, so that motion carries. Thank you very much, Denise, and thanks, Diane. That brings us to item 20, which is an update and actions on the city's COVID-19 response. Mr. City Manager and Director of Emergency Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening again, Council. So very brief report tonight. I'll just point out that the report has 2 weeks of updated statistics on all of our usual topics. You can see those highlighted in there. We're still working on getting facilities reopened. City Hall, we're making more preparations for both employee and the public's safety and coming into the building. June 22nd is our target date. We're working towards that date. We'll keep you posted if there's any changes there. The community center and rec center, we're still looking at after July 4th, that weekend as the potential reopening date. Of course, with the exception of our Learning Ladder and Learning Ladder Graduate School, which is already operational, as you heard. There's a quick update in there about the COVID Relief Fund, the Yellow COVID Relief Fund that Mayor Pro Tem Sandin has been serving on that committee. They actually did make grant awards, and we were pleased to see that several of the awards were to organizations that serve West Sacramento. I noted a few of them in the report. Now, I want to go back to the statistics, though, because I think that's really the most notable thing that's actually not in the report. It's what happened in the last 24 hours. And you may be already aware of some of this. There were 26 new COVID-19 cases reported in Yolo County just in the last day. So obviously that's a concern. 19 of those cases were in Woodland, but 5 of them were also in West Sacramento. And there's contact tracing happening to identify the sources of how those infections occurred. But the bottom line is it's definitely evidence that the virus is still spreading out there. It's the most significant jump we've seen in weeks. So just a point to note that we're closely watching that. I had a conversation of our weekly meeting earlier today with the county administrator and the other city managers to discuss what that means going forward. So, but I'm sure if you weren't aware, that's definitely the most significant item of note regarding our the COVID topic is just what happened in the last day. So, so I'll take any questions you have, but that concludes my remarks tonight. Thanks.
I have a question to our city manager. Are we seeing that the cases are isolated in any particular areas?
So it's hard to get the case data both in terms of the de-aggregated data by jurisdiction and especially at the specific location level. What I do know about the new wave of cases is they all seem to be associated with gatherings, family gatherings, and that's what the contact tracing is all about. But in terms of specific geographies, neighborhoods, we don't receive the data in terms of that specificity. So if that's the question you're asking, the answer is no. We only know that there are cases in West Sacramento, but not by location.
Just to add a bit of flavor to that, I think the county, I think it's public health, has reached out to several of us to make particular outreach in the Latino community, in Woodland, Winters, and West Sacramento, around gatherings in particular, as you say, birthday parties, anniversaries, other get-togethers. That reinforce what you just said, Mr. Laurel, and I think are intended, that guidance is intended to partly answer the question, at least might have been part of the question underlying what Councilmember Orozco's query was as well.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to just highlight that one of our colleagues over in Woodland did create a post yesterday on social media that has been translated, and many of us have shared it already, but I just would encourage people in our community to share that. She is a former mayor of Woodland and did a very good job at making sure that we could, have culturally appropriate outreach, just in the same way we did with other communities who aren't necessarily dominantly speaking English.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what we do know is that this isn't an artifact of just more testing, right? So the sort of the instant response a lot of folks have is, oh, well, you're just testing more, but there's actually not a very strong correlation between the amount of testing per community and the amount of cases in YOLO. And in this particular incidents, as the city manager has indicated, we know about them because of contact tracing, not because just because there's more testing that's occurring. And so these are simple lessons around that we already knew, but that are just really important to reinforce, because they're the sorts of things that people think are harmless, and they are not, and they're resulting in problems all over the place. But certainly we're seeing those a little bit here and in the rest of the county as well. I know I'd asked the city manager also about reports that are specific to the asymptomatic testing that's occurring at Club West as well. We received one of the weekly reports from our colleague Gary Sandy, from the chair of the Yolo County Board of Supervisors, who shared with us the data from at least from one period that was community city by city, but also that separated out the asymptomatic testing, which is really important because it's asymptomatic testing that allows us to determine whether there's an outbreak. By the time folks develop symptoms, it's not that it's irrelevant, but the period of contagion is strongest right before symptoms appear. So it's really critical to identify outbreaks through asymptomatic testing, and that the testing, and we've had reasonable numbers at our testing center at Club West. I think one of the questions I have is what happens after that expires. Given what's going on in YOLO right now, it's clear that we're not anywhere near out of the woods. And so if we don't have testing in July here that's asymptomatic, how are we going to be able to detect outbreaks in that sense? But on the plus side, that the initial data from, I think, the first almost full week of asymptomatic testing at Club West, we're showing positive rates of just over 4%, which isn't, that's not going to earn us a trophy, but it's also not itself alarming. That's pretty close to the state average at the moment. But even that asymptomatic testing on a countywide basis was showing that rates among Latinos who stopped by for asymptomatic testing were nearly double that. And so what we saw in the asymptomatic testing a week or two ago, we're now seeing in these case reports. And so it's a very important sentinel, both at the city level and, as Councilmember Orozco was saying, at the community level, both geographic and culturally in our own city. So maybe I know Councilmember Guerrero has a question. Go there in a second. But if I could ask you, City Manager, do we know anything more about getting the positive rates from asymptomatic testing reported to us on a regular basis? And then two, what's the status of any thinking or work about the testing beyond the current plan at Club West, which I know you worked hard and were able to secure an extension, but now thinking, even past that extension date, what's the thinking at this point?
Yeah, so on the first point, I think that's something I needs a little more follow-up. We do have different methods of getting testing data from the county. There's communication back and forth between the EOCs, and that's highly confidential information as well. But it's something that through those reports, I may be able to extrapolate the information that speaks to your point. But there's also getting the more regular reports that, like the one that you mentioned. We can certainly ask for that as well. On the testing location at Club West, we have let the county know very clearly that there is an interest in extending it longer. We've also said, similar to what we said on contact tracing, that if it's a resource issue, that to let us know, and we would bring it to the council if there's a cost that is required to keep it going, if that's the barrier. But right now, it's scheduled to run through June 27th, and we do have a council meeting between now and then, so I can give an update next week. But as you know, that testing center is done through a partnership at the state and county level, but we have definitely communicated that we're interested in keeping it going more into the summer. So on contact tracing, I didn't mention this, but we have stepped up with a list of employees that are now, I think we had our first 8 employees that went through the Johns Hopkins contact tracing training. I believe that happened today. If it wasn't today, it's tomorrow. But we are supplementing the county's contact tracers so that if there is a significant spike that requires a lot more resources, that the city will be providing some of its personnel to help do that work.
All right. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask the question about the contact tracers and the status of that, and making sure that we have enough, or if we, I've heard of community members who expressed interest to be a contact tracer. If we can do some recruitment of that out in the community, if that's an additional need. And appreciate the report and the update, by the way, Aaron, always extensive and comprehensive. Had a few more questions related to recent CARES Act allocation on the Emergency Solutions Grant, and whether or not you see West Sacramento, maybe Yolo County benefiting from that. I know Mayor Pro Tem Sandin and Councilmember Orozco have been in a couple of committees in the county, if they've heard anything from that allocation. I know that some counties received a direct allocation, but funding went directly to the state and is to be allocated out to local jurisdictions eventually. And as far as I know, it's not going through the state budget process. So if we can, just want to put that out there to just keep an eye out for that. Regarding Project Room Key, I just wanted to also add that in the state budget, SB 74, I think it's page 788, there is language, section 1190 language. That language is something that I've been working on with the Homelessness Coalition, Mayor Garcetti, and several other mayors in the state. Mayor Steinberg was also involved, and he is very helpful and supportive. Oakland Mayor Liccardo is also very helpful in securing that funding. So we have $350 million currently in that bill. I know that bill is not the final bill, but the language is in the bill. And the flexibility, from what I've checked, is going to be flexible. From what I understand at this point, it is on a first come, first served basis. And we want to be able to keep that, but that the Housing and Community Development will have some say on the regulations. So I know, we've had a connection with them, and if reaching out to them to try to make sure that we can secure whatever resources to protect our Project Room Key participants and maintain the additional supportive housing needs. And the flexibility in that, $350 million use and the $550 million on top of that, I think is pretty extensive, which can include rental subsidies. So in addition to purchasing motels that we're currently leasing, we are looking at being able to purchase it with the $550 million. And with the 350 being the operating cost to do the rehab and other necessary support for those individuals in there, which I think is necessary. And I applaud the Yolo County Children's Alliance for all the great work they've been doing and reaching out to the community to provide the additional support. And in addition to that, I understand there is interest to pursue trailer bill language regarding the 28-day limitation that we currently have for participants who go under a regular stay at a room. And so there is pursuit to extend that or to eliminate that. And if I can track who's working on that, I'll pass that along to you. But just for my colleagues who are serving on other committees here related to homelessness and our vulnerable populations, just want to make sure you're aware of that as well. And also, Judicial Council was going to take up this last week eliminating the eviction moratorium so that the sunset date would have been after the emergency declaration sunsetted, but I think they put off the vote because that was going to have a negative impact on folks that would have been immediately, for certain jurisdictions who had an additional, say, 6 months or 4 months. I think everybody had a varied number. They just decided not to take an action on that. But if we can keep an eye out for that, that would be really helpful in case we needed to extend our time and have that flexibility if we see that there is a need for preventing evictions. And I also want to, strongly support additional testing. As you described, Erin, I think that's extremely important here. I've seen a lot of people interested and encouraged a lot to go in and get the testing done. It's a lot easier than going through their healthcare provider. And it's well done. So just whatever we can do to provide you with that support and encouragement through the county, want to make sure that we get that taken care of. Thank you. Oh, one more thing, sorry. I heard that domestic violence is on the rise here in West Sacramento from a provider, and they're not. I know Empower YOLO was one of the providers that was a recipient of our COVID relief fund. But if we can get more, if you can give me more information so that I can share, whether or not that particular provider can also, draw down some funding from the COVID relief fund, or whether they're going to disperse any additional grants, that would be good to know. Thank you.
Member Roscoe. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Sandine.
Actually, I was going to share information related to the relief fund. So I'll share some background on that. I want to thank Tracy Michael, who is our Director of Parks and Recreation, for her work on reviewing grants. And the city manager provided a nice summary. But when we actually embarked on deciding to make an investment in this fund, we were really focused, as you may recall, on leveraging the $25,000 that we put into this fund. And I just wanted to share with you that YOLO Food Bank, YOLO County Children's Alliance, and Empower YOLO all have received $30,000 frontline response grants. That's $90,000. Meals on Wheels YOLO County received $20,000 grant. Suicide prevention, which is also an issue, unfortunately, during the stay-at-home period, they received a $10,000 grant, and then Yellow Basin Foundation, which does some environmental education to kids at Washington Unified School District, received the $5,000 grant. Now there are more grants coming, and there's still, I believe, Ms. Michael may actually have more current information than I do. I believe that they're still accepting grant applications. So that information can be found at the YOLO Community Foundation site, and there's information on how to apply. There's still Mike McGowan, former first mayor of the city, former supervisor, serving on a committee to increase the fund through additional donations. And so while this first kind of pot of funds, which is over $400,000, is almost allocated, there will continue to be grants made as more money is raised. So I think in terms of our leveraging this fund and doing good for the nonprofits, I think it was a wise investment of the council. And I'll continue to keep you updated with more details along the way.
And just to throw in an update from Tracy, there's 20,000 in grant funds still available of the current amount, the original pool, I believe.
Right.
20,000 is available still.
Thank you for that. And I think there's still a lot of funding possibilities out there for the city and for others as a result of a lot of this. The state and federal dollars are possibilities, although the ones that have already been appropriated are hugely problematic for us because they don't, they're not reaching us, right? So the federal government did allocate funding for local governments and went to the state. States is giving it to the counties and allocating and not requiring any of that funding to go to cities at all. And much of the money that's in the governor's budget proposal follows a similar tack. It goes directly to the large cities and to the counties, and then everyone else must rely on the good graces of their counties in order to allocate it to them. So we have a good partnership and relationship with the county, so we're hopeful, but it's difficult to spend money today to meet those needs and demands without the certainty that our large city colleagues and counties have right now. So it's there might be a lot of resources out there. There might be zero. We don't really know, and that makes it difficult in some of these respects to be able to respond in the ways that I think we'd all like to see move forward. So hopefully the HEROES Act moves forward. The HEROES Act takes a different approach and would allocate money directly to us and not through the state and the county in the same manner. So that's one potential light out there. But as the council is aware, the Senate Majority Leader has committed not to bring that is not committing to bring that up for quite a while. So that's also not an immediate possibility for us. Councilmember Guerrero? Oh, your hand is still up. Okay. All right, so thank you very much then, City Manager. And if there's nothing else on this item, then let's proceed to this council calendar.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Just a couple of things coming up tomorrow. We have the WASAFCA meeting. That's tomorrow morning. It'll be by teleconference at 9 a.m. And then tomorrow afternoon, evening, we have the Planning Commission also by teleconference. And other commissions are coming back online. Probably in the coming month. We'll see more of those. That's it for me.
All right. So now that they're reconvening, it may be appropriate for us to consider filling any of the vacancies on them. So ask the clerk to do a quick inventory of the vacancies and the applications. That would be great, and we'll consider bringing some potential nominations forward. Any questions on the calendar? All right, thank you. Then City Manager reports.
No other report tonight, thank you.
All right, City Attorney reports.
Nothing to report tonight.
No ceiling fan tonight. Come on, Jeff.
There it is.
Okay, all right, thank you. Staff direction from members of the council. Maybe I'll take this moment to just quickly report on the MBK Alliance piece that we began, as well as part of the President Obama's use of force proposals and process for cities to work together, because we have been coordinating with the city manager as well on the process and hoping to bring this together as part of or potentially in conjunction with the strategic plan item that's going to be returning to the council as well. But just a quick update, and that is that on Sunday, a group of community leaders in our city, predominantly African American, and some experts in the fields of law enforcement training and standards and investigations and internal affairs. We got together for a convening on Sunday. And these are folks who are community leaders who serve or have served on commissions in our community, are active in community organizations, or have been active in social movements in and outside of our community, some all the way dating back to the 1964 Civil Rights Act. A really terrific, deep bench of folks who with a lot of expertise and experience, and also a lot of pain and challenges in their lives dealing with systemic racism, and so it was a conversation about, well, what's the experience that we should know about here in our own community. We're watching a lot on television and across the river, and we of course as a council that's 80% people of color and has grappled with a lot of these issues over many years from the time that we became incorporated as West Sacramento. Have been attentive, but how can we learn more and understand better and think about some of the the options and solutions that might be out there. So it was a very wide-ranging, deep, honest, frank initial conversation. My commitment to them was that we would try to work quickly through some options and solutions the framing that I was bringing to this was, West Sacramento, we do best when we are striving to be our best and to be a model for other communities and to take hard things on, but make great things out of them. And so, I will report that there wasn't a sense of, the city of West Sacramento and its police department are horrible and they're the worst in the country. And it wasn't that. It was, we have a sort of a department and officers that do a good job and that care and that are reflective and are oriented to community-based policing. And at the same time, we do face systemic problems in the system of law enforcement. And I would just add that includes community members too, and not just officers, right? And it was evocative of the Amy Cooper incident in New York, a lot of this conversation that it's beyond simply the department itself. So our commitment was to try to work expeditiously and to focus on things that really mattered, to focus on our department and our opportunities and this isn't Minneapolis and it's not Buffalo, and really what can we do in our own community that's worthwhile. And so we're going to be convening again on a set of specific topics, things like recruitment and investigations and internal affairs, and a bit on use of force policies and other issues, although much of that's also up for debate at the state level, and the questions around what are the roles of the police department itself and other non-sworn personnel and that sort of thing. So my hope is that in conjunction with this group and others, but certainly this group is a potential core that will be able to engage the council in the community in a profound but also expeditious process to look at ourselves in the mirror and to bring forward things that make sense with the sort of eye towards pragmatism and inclusion that West Sacramento prides itself on. So this was a beginning, not the end, and I'm not coming here tonight with a set of extensive proposals or a 10-point plan, but simply I express to this group of folks and to others that this is a council that's deeply committed to social justice and to inclusive equity, and to really dealing with issues of systemic racism, and that we never shied away from them before, we won't now. And that we're prepared to take that journey on. In terms of our formal work, it will be coming back to the council at a future time as well. I'm going to ask Councilmember Ledesma who served on the subcommittee with me previously on the 21st century policing reports to join the conversations when he can, but to try to frame up and tee up options for the council to take up. This is not a task force. It's going to be submitting a report to the council for us to vote yes or no on. This is simply a way for us to deepen a conversation with folks in our community who have perspectives that need to be seen and voices that need to be heard in order to help us in our community be the more perfect community that we are always striving to be. So thank you. That was the longest staff direction from council members ever, but I appreciate the council's indulgence in that and commitment to keep working through these issues. Councilmember Roscoe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you personally for your proactive efforts in responding. You did so with actions, not empty words, and that's one of the things that is commendable about your leadership here in West Sacramento, and we're lucky to have you. And speaking for the folks in our community who haven't been heard traditionally. My question about the group is, I know it's not a formal task force. However, is it open to additional people by recommendation who might have different perspectives, community leaders in, say, Black church communities or otherwise?
Yes, and as it isn't a formal task force, the group can also it can change from conversation to conversation, right? Not everyone needs, if you have if folks in the group have perspectives and ideas about, what are some of the smartest things to do around making sure that that reviews of misconduct are independent and fair and just. That if you agree to participate in that conversation, it doesn't mean you also have to you're also agreeing to be an expert around rubber bullets and tear gas and use of force guidelines, right? That folks should be able to participate when they want to. So yes, if there are others, and I will also I'm happy to share the names of the folks who participated thus far as well. But yes, it's definitely not a closed group, and if there are additional voices to be brought into the conversation, certainly welcome that. Obviously, we don't want to have 45 people because we want to really do something, and also recognize that we have I know our city manager, our chief, and our officers and others are also thinking a lot about this too. So it's about making sure that we are touching and listening and learning rapidly and together. So yes, if further ideas and suggestions, would absolutely welcome them. And it's not limited only to folks in our community who are Black. Right. These are voices that we particularly want to hear, because this is a moment where their perspectives and voices must be. But our the system of justice in our community touches all of us, and as many of us know from our own life experience in many different ways, in different communities in West Sacramento in different ways. So certainly want to include and incorporate the voices and perspectives of a range of folks in our community.
No, this conversation is definitely one of the most important actions we can take. And so I appreciate your helping to put that together. I also appreciated receiving the local newspaper today and seeing the police department's statement to our community, and also on social media. That was a great first step. And I know under the leadership of our acting chief Strange, and as well as other folks behind him that are working hard on this effort, that we're heading in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. And just to highlight that, to add on, and you mentioned both the newspaper and social media, the police department in conjunction with the city manager's office and the public information office, the new web page on the city's site that is intended to provide in very clear and understandable and honest terms some of the data, some of the numbers, the policies, and some of the issues that are out there. It's gotten a lot of positive feedback from folks who have a wide range of opinions, but it's a very great way for folks who want to know more about what they see or experienced, see the department's perspective, but also some of the policies that we already have in place in West Sacramento, and some of the data and indicators and metrics that can help them with their own opinions, but also to contribute them. So appreciate it. Thank you. Councilmember Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am also interested in knowing the participants, and the history of West Sacramento includes the Latino and the Native American population, and recent activity has been to across the river has been to take down statues and icons that have brought some history of pain and bad memories of how some individuals in the past who were memorialized have actually brought some negative experience and hurtful things. And just want to make sure I know we have a Native American center that's going to be built out here in West Sacramento. So reaching out, as you said, it's not just the Black community, but also reaching out to those that have experienced some hurt, and looking at West Sacramento individually, the gang injunction. I know there was a lot of work, as the gang injunction was sunsetted. Our West Sac PD really stepped up to the plate to try to move beyond that and establish a really good rapport and relationship building these last few years, and been a witness to that, and seeing all the community activity from the summer night lights, and also reaching out when we would have our annual event, going from neighborhood to neighborhood with the police officers, firefighters, and all of the leadership in the city, all the whole city staff, all the county departments, city departments being involved. And I just got to say that West Sacramento is extremely unique, and I pride, the work that our police officers have done. I've talked about it, at the National Association of Social Workers. As a board member there. And, just seeing how they've been open and accepting a social worker, Mark Sawyer, who's made a huge difference in reaching out and de-escalating situations, using those de-escalation tactics that have been really important in addressing individuals in a crisis situation. And also, keeping him on board as he's continued to provide training and exchanging his experience, as a social worker in interacting with the, police officers. So, whatever training, whatever additional training and resources to continue to build upon that effective.
I just want to interrupt because I was reporting on sort of the conversation just as a report to the council without any specific policy intervention or solutions. So I just want, before the city attorney pops out and tells us we're violating the Brown Act, so we can't really,
that's a
really
good
be
point.
talking about specific policy interventions at this point. And I think we're early in that stage too. I don't want to overpromise either that what these conversations are not, they're not the, and what I'm working on at the moment with the city manager and others is not intended to be a comprehensive universal social justice review of everything. It really is focused on this particular issue that has been not seen. That is the legacy of slavery and its impacts. That's really and listening to residents of ours who systematically feel unsafe in their daily journeys and cannot and don't feel safe. I mean, their children walk a block or two away. That's really the focus at the moment. And so I appreciate that, all the work that's going on in other places around, a broader set of justice movements and issues and what have you. But at least we also have to focus on making sure the water gets turned on and the fire calls get answered and the police calls get answered too. And so trying to focus on making sure, for me, at least personally, I will say this moment it's the first time this moment has been real in my entire lifetime. If it's going to get solved, or at least if we're going to make significant progress on the legacy of slavery and systemic racism, it's going to take a laser focus on that. And so that's what this effort is around this particular community. Obviously has big impacts for other communities in West Sacramento and to our future. But I'm only mentioning this because I don't want to, if we come back in a week or two with some ideas, it won't cover public school curriculum, it won't cover statutes, it won't cover street naming, it won't cover all of that. That we don't have that. That's not the charge that we invited folks to come to. And the council, we can always take those up at the council's direction, but within the narrow confines of what our strategic plan and our resources allow at the moment, that's really the particular focus. So as I said, we hope to have. I will get the list out to the council, and also we'll post it as well of the folks that are participating. But we're hopeful that we'll be able to provide some value and some use to you as my colleagues, but also to the whole community as we try to work through and create real lasting, deep social change in this space. All right, we have no future agenda item requests. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Councilmember Orozco moves and Mayor Pro Tem Sandin seconds that the meeting be adjourned. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on the motion to adjourn?
Certainly. Councilmember Ledesma.
Aye.
Councilmember Orozco.
Aye.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sandin.
Aye.
And Mayor Cabaldan.
Aye. All right, that motion carries and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Be safe and thank you for hold each other tight. And please have a good evening. Thanks to our staff and team and our guests as well. Good night, everyone.
All right.
Good night.